All right, welcome back to another episode of My Father Before Me. I'm your host, Brennan Sim. Joining me this week is Tory. How are you doing, Dad?
I'm doing great.
Great. We're back here to continue our Lethal Weapon series retrospective by looking at the second Lethal Weapon. It was released in 1989, and in it, Riggs and Murtaugh are on the trail of South African diplomats who are using their immunity to engage in criminal activities. Just like the first one, the film is directed by Richard Donner. It is written by Jeffrey Boam with a story by Shane Black and Warren Murphy, and stars Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Joe Pesci, and Joss Ackland. Now, as always, Dad, we're going to begin with a brief non-spoiler review. What did you think revisiting Lethal Weapon 2?
Well, Lethal Weapon 2, and we can probably get into this right away. Lethal Weapon 2 is my Lethal Weapon in the same way when we talked about Escape from New York and Escape from L.A. I knew more about Escape from L.A. because Lethal Weapon 2 came out around the time that I was, eyes fixed on HBO, and I mentioned this with that, so I might be revisiting it. But, HBO had all these special features. They do little 20, 30-minute making of featurettes, and stuff like that. And I distinctly remember in this one, some of the big, and we'll talk about it in spoilers, but some of the big scenes and how big they were for the time and the special effects and how they set it all up and all this other stuff, right? So I remember whole special featurettes about this, which is why, I know Lethal Weapon 2 probably more than I know Lethal Weapon 1, right? Because it was that kind of thing. You watch it over and over again and you see those featurettes and, you're like me. We like watching the DVD extras and that kind of thing, right? So it's that kind of thing. So going back and revisiting it, it was still what I thought it was. I still remembered all of it. I still loved all of it. When I think of, as we talked about last episode with the Lethal Weapon, how that's supposed to be the father of the buddy cop or the grandfather of the body cop or what you want to say.
Sure.
I think Lethal Weapon 2 is that because this is more of the buddy cop formula. The first one, I feel like it was more of a cop drama that started a little bit of the buddy cop, but this is where they ran with it. You can tell that what they were doing was playing off of these two characters and their reactions to each other, and they're going back and forth, and of course we've already got them. They know each other at this point, and we had the growth of the couple in the first one. But I think that, when I think of buddy cop movies, I think of Lethal Weapon 2 as the buddy cop movie, when I'm comparing that to everything else.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, definitely being the sequel, we've got, the relationship is established. We don't have to spend time introducing Riggs and into Murtaugh or whatever. They're already buddies and now they're cops. Whereas the first one was like the journey to becoming buddies who are cops. And now it's like you said, the formula is established. I will say I came into this not really expecting a lot, as is traditional for most sequels. I assumed that I was going to be let down. Not every sequel could be Godfather Part 2.
Sure.
But I was definitely surprised. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. As far as a sequel goes, I think it continued sort of what we built up in the first one. It kept a lot of the same stuff, and I think that it really benefited it, and it didn't feel like it was just a retread of the first one.
Right.
It was distinct enough that I was like, okay, this is actually interesting. I'm willing to spend the rest of these 2 hours watching it.
It definitely is. And it's fun. I like I say, this is more of the buddy cop, the fun thing, I think. Right. And, this is also sets the formula for the next couple Lethal Weapons, where it is every movie is just its own little contained thing. It's almost like we think of a Law and Order episode, in that this is the crime that they're trying to figure out. And granted, it's bigger than that.
Sure.
But and they get to it, and then they figure out the crime, and then they solve it, and then it's all done, right? And then the next one is a different one, and then the next one is a different one. So of the 4 Lethal Weapons, they're all different things. There's no connectivity or anything like that except for these two characters, And I think that the continuation of, and I guess I one thing I will say I noticed more on this rewatch than in the past was how you can definitely see that they are forcing some of that too. Some of the written lines are a little bit, they feel like they're forced into that buddy cop thing. Maybe that's just, again, because this is the first one, the first buddy cop, like I said.
Yeah.
But going back, I could kind of see where some of that was, I don't know, where the writing seemed a little off, I guess.
That's a good point, and that's actually interesting because the first one was written by Shane Black, and this one is actually the person who's credited with writing the screenplay is Jeffrey Boam, who's somebody that I've never heard his name before. No offense to Jeffrey Boam. Oh, he wrote Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Okay, well, he did all right then.
That's like the best Indiana Jones movie.
And Lethal Weapon 3, so they brought him back at least, we'll say.
Okay. So yeah, I mean that does make sense. Maybe Shane Black had the original idea and then Jeffrey Boam came in and was like, "Okay, well, the thing that worked about the first movie is the chemistry between these two guys.
Right.
Like I have to make that work."
And you can tell that that's what they amped up.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and we talked about with the first one, Shane Black writing this story early in his career when he was young, right? And we also discussed, how his version of it or his initial writing of it was a lot darker, and a lot more drama and that sort of thing. So I could see where maybe they brought in this other dude to punch it up in that way or do the buddy cop formula or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between the first one and the second one. And I will say you can't tell a difference between the second one and the third one. So there you go. The third one is just more of the same, right? It even brings back Joe Pesci. Of course, Joe Pesci becomes a standard addition to the team.
Yeah, it was fun to see Joe Pesci.
Yes, it was.
His character was great. But so we can continue to talk about the beauty that is Joe Pesci. Let's go ahead and get into the spoiler section. So if you haven't seen Lethal Weapon, which came out again 40 years ago, and you don't want to be spoiled, go watch it. We'll be here. Welcome back. All right, let's get into the spoiler stuff. So the character of Joe Pesci, I thought it was interesting to begin the story of this movie by telling these two guys, all right, you're going to protect this witness.
Right.
That was weird to me in some ways because I was like, well, I mean, you got to assume these are like some of your grade A cops.
Right. Well, and it's kind of fun because each of the second, third, and fourth movie are in, and so here's the deal. The trope of these movies, the trope of all these movies that we see, and the comedy happens at another time where they cause so much damage that they always get in trouble.
Okay.
Right. And of course, and this is the personification or the impetus for that, because they get beat down to after their first car chase scene they do or whatever, they get beat down to just being protection duty. I'll go ahead and spoil a little. It's not a spoiler. The third one, they get beat down and they have to get back in uniforms and be beat cops.
That's right. That's funny.
And then in the fourth one, they actually get promoted to captain because the department's insurance company won't cover them being on the street. So they get promoted to captain.
That's really
Of course,
funny.
that doesn't stop them from being what the Lethal Weapon is. But so, I mean, that whole thing is that delivery of that. And of course, the part of this movie that goes with it is they take that downgrading and turn it into the issue, right? And it's kind of, it's cool. I suppose it could be coincidental that he just happened to deal with the people in this stilt house, so he knew how to find them,
Sure.
and they could make that connection somehow. Because I don't think that's why initially they were protecting him. I didn't know if it was from the same case or if it was for something else. I can't even remember now.
I don't think they explicitly said it. I think they were just like, he's a white collar criminal who's going to be turning state's witness. Watch him.
Right.
I think they just found out along the way.
And I guess it did happen right away when they're protecting him that the guy comes into the hotel room and tries to pop him in front of the cops.
Yeah, immediately.
Which, is a neat line where they said, well, you must have done something pretty rough for him to take the chance of popping him in front of two cops, and stuff. So.
Now, is that the scene where they jump out the window and land in the pool?
Land in the pool, yes, of course. All three of them go down and hit the pool just right. And then, of course, they come up and Riggs is punching Pesci, Man, I'm going to keep calling him Pesci. What was his name?
Leo.
Leo gets.
Yeah.
Whatever you need, Leo gets. Yes, I forget. How could I forget?
That was good. Well, and I like this, again, continuing the good chemistry between Mel Gibson and Danny Glover when Danny Glover's running down and he gets to the pool and Martin's like, well, why didn't you follow me?
Right.
That was a pretty good one.
It is good stuff. And I think that's what I think about when I think of the fun, right? They can enjoy all these action scenes together and stuff. And it goes, and it keeps going. We'll say it right now. I'll say it at the end again, but I would recommend watching 3 and 4 just to continue with that, and see where it goes. But yeah, I like Joe Pesci coming in here and giving them something else to rip on, even though they are kind of jerks to the dude.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely a fun addition because, I mean, obviously, like we talked about a lot, I mean, this is an established team. These guys have worked together. I mean, I don't know. Who knows exactly how long? They never say, but they have a certain rapport. And so to have that third person come in and be like, hey, can we stop at this deli?
Right.
It's pretty fun.
Or when they go to eat and they're, don't you guys have plates, or whatever?
Yeah, they just eat a big bowl of spaghetti. Right. And I like the part where, and again, Joe Pesci's got some great lines throughout this, but and this is a little later in the movie, but when they stop at Subway and he's got his monologue about the drive-thru.
Yeah, that's his thing. And that's it was definitely it's a thing that keeps going, but it is interesting. So Joe Pesci, he, originally that character was supposed to be more of a high society, effeminate kind of guy. But he decided to go this other way, this kind of squirrely little dude. Yeah. And it definitely works. He made it work, and it becomes, it becomes a staple and something everybody recognizes Joe Pesci for. I mean, obviously, he won the Oscar for where he was the comedy where he's My Cousin Vinny, right? Didn't he?
I don't know.
Or was he just nominated? Man, I can't remember now. And of course, he's been a tough guy in some other shows. But the way that this worked out, I think that it kind of... it worked out great. So
he was nominated in Raging Bull, which I forgot that he was Robert De Niro's brother in that. He won for Goodfellas.
Well, I thought he got something. What was My Cousin Vinny? I could have swore he won for something for that.
I don't know. But in the Blockbuster Entertainment Awards, he was nominated for Favorite Supporting Actor in Lethal Weapon 4.
He does it's an amazing job in Lethal Weapon 4. No.
American Comedy Awards, he won.
Now, are you sure there aren't more Oscar stuff? Is there a more button up there?
I think this will just take me to the Oscars.
Oh, it does say 33 wins, and I don't know. I can't keep up with this stuff. This technology.
Talking about a movie that came out in 1992. But no, I think he made the smart choice. Joe Pesci did to switch the character in that way, and especially when he's a people pleaser, and like you said, he's a squirrely guy, so he's like, okay. That's such a great choice. That's definitely underrated, and I think it really works.
It is interesting he obviously gets the job done, because I can't imagine these hardened criminals putting up with that guy.
Oh yeah, he would be so annoying. Well, I mean, Martin Riggs and Murtaugh are with him for 3 minutes, and they're constantly shut up.
He's ready we'll take that room over there. He's, well, my stuff's already okay.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Well, and then later on, they've got when they have to relocate him or whatever. Oh, man, this must be like an hour or so in the movie. But they're trying to figure out where to put him, and Murtaugh and Riggs are just arguing over like whose place he's going to stay at. And
right?
It's like, my place is small already.
Then they end up taking turns, and what was it? He ends up cleaning up his camper or whatever.
Yeah, and he puts all this stuff outside.
Right.
Yeah, and then he gets mad that the dog is there, and Riggs is like, "You're gonna leave before the dog does." No, I really like it. I think it works. I will say, part of me thinks that like Joe Pesci maybe should have played like an actual bigger role in the movie, considering he's kind of like the catalyst event through all of this. He doesn't play. Protecting him doesn't actually play a big role throughout the middle of it.
Right.
And then in the end, they just sort of like shuffle him off, and he's like, drive my car to the station.
Right. Protecting him is just it's the clue they need to move on with this crime. Right. And stuff. But they keep him in there enough to keep him going. And then of course, obviously he's a fan favorite because he definitely gets a lot more in the next couple movies. Right. He gets more involved. He's always involved. I think in the fourth one or the third one, he's Danny Glover's realtor trying to sell his house. It's great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a shift.
I don't know if you're going to watch it or not, but he's at the beginning, he's walking through with this couple trying to sell the house. Okay, now this is where the cop car came in, and they came through the window and stuff. And Danny Glover's hiding behind the door, about ready to shoot him because he's telling these potential buyers all this stuff about the drug lords in the house. And
That's great. I wish this is a weird thing, but I kind of wish we'd seen more of Murtaugh's house in this. It felt like such a staple of the first movie, and to spend so little time there just felt weird.
it did. Now they did have the Chekhov's nail gun at the beginning where they
Yes.
showed up, which was great. And that construction guy, I don't know who he is, but he showed up. He had a great line too, made me want to buy rubbers. But he's been in a lot of. He's a character actor you see in a lot of things. But yeah, they did have the scene where they come, and then of course that's where they actually do get Joe or get Leo. Is that he runs back to the house and stuff, and there's the fun little fight. And I don't know if the nail gun would really work that way, but it was exciting. So.
It was fun, yeah. And I was glad we got to see a scene where Danny Glover got to be a badass instead of just Mel Gibson. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
It's always fun to see an old guy take on two 30-something with a
I
nail
told you,
gun.
it's that dad core thing. This is this started that off as well. So
Yeah. And it was okay. So a problem that I have with the story of this movie is that it is incredibly convenient that Danny Glover just so happened to have video of the boat that the South Africans are going to escape on back to South Africa.
well, we've established in the first movie that Danny loves his boats, or Murtaugh loves his little boat or whatever. But somehow that equated to just happening to have a video that he remembers the name of this giant container ship. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. That was pretty convenient. And then I will, how many times are you going to leave this guy in the car? You know what I mean? Like, in some cases it works out, but in the one time he stays, he gets kidnapped.
It doesn't seem like the best plan, although I guess, sending him, let's see, when are the other times? The other time was there's shots fired, and then that's when Riggs has to chase the guy, and they get the tow truck that ends with the surfboard through the head. And stuff. But,
that was a fun scene.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
So I guess it kind of worked out. Then, of course, the running gag, starting with the chase scene at the beginning is Murtaugh's car. That's more of a thing than Murtaugh's house, this movie.
Yeah,
because it's a brand new car and they started the chase. And the best line that I remember, and it's towards the beginning there, is when Riggs takes over driving and Murtaugh's like, "You're not going to fit." And he's driving up on the curb. "You're not going to fit." And then they go through, and of course he's scraping up the side, and he comes out, and Riggs like, "Yeah, you're right, man. I just didn't fit."
Yeah, no, that was a good one. Well, it's a good thing that was the side that's got scraped, because that's also the side that got the door knocked off.
It kept losing everything. That poor car. Yeah, that was definitely the Murtaugh house this time.
Definitely. I will say, not a great choice to bring a station wagon on a police chase.
No, especially if it's your wife's new station wagon. You should never do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. But so here's a question. What car was he driving at the end? The one where when he's finally like, "All right, we're going to chase after this guy in Riggs's truck." And he tells Joe Pesci to drive his car back to the station. What car is that?
I don't. He must have grabbed it from the motor pool. These people. The cops have access to all kinds of cars.
Now, I do want to talk about Mel Gibson's character, Murtaugh Riggs. That's not his name, Martin Riggs. I thought it was, at the beginning, it was surprising to me that we had spent so long dealing with more of his wife's death. Considering I felt like that was the type of thing where it's like, you spend the whole first movie dealing with that, and then eventually, a couple years pass, he's able to move past it. In the beginning, it was weird that we spent so long with it, but then in the end, I think it kind of worked out.
Right. It pays off, and you got to think, and maybe I'm giving the movie a little credit here, but they've got the whole thing with the pin at the beginning, which is great. And then they've got the he's or was that the third one? Did I just screw that up?
No, the pen's in this one. Yeah,
all right. I watched them all.
Gold pen.
But so they've got that bit, and then he finds this other girl, right, who ends up dying, and I think that maybe it's one of those things where, and maybe I'm giving the movie too much credit for this, but maybe it is one of those things where he finally found somebody else, and he's gone right away. So they're trying to equate that all, and of course it's the same dude who killed both of them.
Yeah, that was convenient,
right? Which is an interesting way to tie all that together and bring it back up. Give Riggs a little bit of closure there. That this is the thing, which I don't know if you need closure on a car accident. If you thought it was a car accident, well, now it turns out it was a murder. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be one thing if in the first movie, they had a little line where the act it they'd claimed it was an accident, but there were some questions about it. But then
Right.
to just open it up in this movie and not open it up until literally like the midpoint,
Right.
and then spend just the last half of the movie dealing with that. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, this is convenient. I don't know if this guy really needs this motivation. I think you could have just as easily um, had the goons kill the new girl Rika, and
Hmm.
then that would have been enough. I don't know if we need the connection to the wife.
Right. You're kind of ruining something you could have brought into episode 3 or
Yeah.
It is, it is kind of a callback, right? Because we did start out the first one with him being on Vice, the drug squad or whatever, and they're running drugs and stuff. So I guess they're being consistent with it, but
Hmm. Well, and I like, they do make a point, like you said, when they throw Riggs. I keep almost calling him Murtaugh because his first name's Martin. When they throw him in the ocean or whatever, right before that, he says, you just have such bad luck with the ladies or
right.
whatever. I like that if you're gonna tie it in, I think it works, but yeah, it was a little too convenient to me. But throwing him in the lake, it's another callback to something that we saw earlier with him dislocating his shoulder to get out of a straitjacket.
Right, right. And it is kind of fun because that they use that too to also build up the fact that there's another team here, right? So
Mhm.
when that team gets taken out, we can see some of the what am I saying? The direness of the situation or something
Yeah.
like that, right? It gives them a way to build up that these bad guys are just now it's done, right? Now we're not going to do anything. We're just going to start taking people out.
Okay, so I'm glad that you brought up the other team in the police station because you're right. I mean, I didn't think about that, of course, but yeah, they didn't play much of a role in the first one, but in the beginning of the second one, we do definitely see more of them, and quite a few of them get lines. And there's even, the joke based off of the daughter's commercial or whatever, where
Right.
you get to see them all have the interactions with the main two and realize, okay, well, they're friends, maybe not close friends, but they're buddies. They play poker together or
Right.
whatever.
Well, and you're starting to get the squad, the police department as a character as well, then,
Mhm.
right? I mean, obviously the first one, and they come back for this. We got the captain and we got the psychologist or what a psychiatrist or
Yeah,
whatever.
Collins, I think was her name.
Right? Those two were in there, and they come back and they continue to come back. But yeah, building a team is nice. It's also interesting going back and rewatching it now because we've got on the team we've got the dude from
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad,
Hank Schrader.
yeah, and then we've got and the one of the female cops is the mom from Terminator 2
Oh,
who gets
really?
stabbed or no, who stabs the guy, and she's also in Aliens, the second
Oh,
Aliens
really?
movie. She's one of the uh
Private Vasquez.
yes, yep,
She's also in Star Trek Generations as science officer.
yeah. She doesn't have much of a role there, but
I don't know. It sounds like she's pretty important to me. Yeah. So I liked being able to see a little bit more of the police station, but once we get past the midpoint, when we get to the section where things really start to get serious, it felt really fast. The
yeah,
escalation of seeing literally everybody destroyed and blown to pieces or shot or whatever. It was one of those things where I was like, I think that this should have maybe been like a little bit of a slower burn here.
yeah,
Like maybe start out with just the guy who's hanging upside down and then wait a little bit, have some more interaction between Riggs and Murtaugh. Or I guess at this point, Riggs would have been with his lady friend.
right.
And then blow up the poker game or whatever. I think it should have just been a little bit of a slower burn. It just all happened so fast and so soon. And I don't think we really got to see enough of them in the beginning to really develop any sort of connection. So it's like, and we didn't get to see much interaction between the main two and the police squad. So when we get to the end, and Riggs is like, they've declared war on the police.
Hmm.
I was like, well, yeah. But I was like, can we just move along? And I mean, again, I don't know if we need more motivation here. I mean,
I suppose that's I suppose all of this because the question that you always have with these movies is these guys get away with just killing cops get away with killing people. Now obviously in the ending to the first one he didn't necessarily kill Joshua or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And stuff like that, but they're killing a diplomat, and so how do they get away with this? That we get a third one with them not just spending the entire time in prison.
Yeah, they just sort of don't. They just they have the one like he holds the thing up so high, and it's like diplomatic immunity, and then Riggs or Murtaugh just shoots him in the head. It's better above.
Like I said, they're not in prison. So obviously, what we're doing here is we're just establishing these are bad guys. And I got to say, it was awful convenient of the police squad to have a poker night so they could all get blown up together.
Yeah, well, it was convenient that Murtaugh wasn't there because he had to protect Leo Getz.
That's right.
He was feeling lucky that night.
I think, yeah, and I think what they're, obviously they're giving us some red shirts, right?
Yeah.
And giving us a little bit of time to get connected to them and, feel it when they die. But you're right. It does go from, because they specifically say they're in the dude's office, right after they shoot the guy on the plastic, and talking about, no, we don't need to kill him. We just need to threaten him. And that's when they go and threaten Murtaugh, which obviously just gives them more information because it gives them the accent and, it gives them more to watch for and stuff. And it does go from that to, okay, now let's just kill the whole squad.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. I can't even remember what really happens in between there that gives them some kind of an impetus for that. But it definitely, it goes from, no, we're only going to threaten them to, okay, kill them.
Yeah, it does definitely happen. I think the part where they go to the stilt house, and then after they have their interact. I think they storm the place, and then the bad guy, whose name I don't remember. Arjun, that's right, because you keep calling him Aryan. He drops off Rika at the house, and then that's when he's like, the threat didn't work. And then after that is when they decide that they're going to just start killing everybody.
Yeah, and of course at that point, they're getting that information from Leo about the stilt house, so they're getting a little closer. So I guess that gives you enough.
Yeah. But the destruction of the stilt house we're jumping back to the end. That was absolutely insane, and I've got to say, the construction of that house was not very strong if it could be torn down by a regular old pickup truck.
Now, this is a Martin Riggs pickup truck. We don't know what he's done to that thing.
He souped it up.
I definitely, and that was what I was alluding to earlier, is that was a big thing on the special features, how they actually built this entire house in the background. I mean, it's a full-size house that they built so that they could yank down.
Oh, it's not like a model or anything?
No,
that's crazy.
That's an actual, and it's kind of, and I specifically remember they kind of did a composite shot in the special features of the guy who was hosting the special features standing in front of it while it fell down, and stuff. But so that kind of rings in my head. But that was an interesting thing. And of course, it's one of those things where how many writers or movie people have driven by them house. Oh, I could use that as a set. And look what I could do, and stuff.
Yeah.
But he finally did it, and stuff. So
yeah.
But that was a big thing. And then the other big thing that they wanted to focus on for some reason in this making of featurette that I remember is when he shoots the fish tank.
Oh,
and the fish are rolling everywhere and stuff. I'm like, okay, I've seen Mission Impossible. I've seen that done better. So.
yeah, that was definitely a weird moment for sure. I mean, this guy must really like his fish if he's just going to completely ignore the guy who shot it and be like, pick him up with your hands.
Right. I got to think, and again, we're giving a little bit of credit here because it's never actually said, but I got to assume Riggs is counting on the fact that there is something shady going on here and he doesn't want to report it to the cops because then the cops come and start looking around, looking into things. And then that becomes a thing, I don't know. Right. But I mean, again, you get away with Riggs just wandering, trespassing into this,
it's foreign soil,
yes. Shooting, it just causing all kinds of havoc and then wandering out.
Yeah.
And nothing's happening. Again, it is, I suppose that's the suspend the disbelief kind of thing.
Sure. Well, and also, again, very convenient that he happens to have the exact location and the exact time on a notepad right on top of his desk.
Right there.
Now, I've never committed a crime, especially one quite this heinous, but I think if I was going to do it, even with diplomatic immunity, I would try to hide my notes.
Well, obviously these bad guys think that they're awful secure in their little foreign soil building.
Yeah. And it's immediately after that where we get another great interaction between Danny Glover, Mel Gibson, and Joe Pesci, but they're riding away afterwards. And that's the one moment where you get the sense, Okay, they could get along with Joe Pesci fine.
Right. They're beating him, but yeah, he's a partner in a
Yeah.
way. But
And I think that's when they stop. No, that's when they stop at the deli. He's like, "Can we pull over? I'm kind of hungry." And Danny Glover's like, "No." And then Joe Pesci says, "I'll spring," and then he pulls over instantly.
and then they've got yeah, and that's the drive-through rant, or was it earlier? I can't remember. I just remember that tuna was a thing, and I don't even remember back in the 80s that tuna was such a big thing. I guess I remember that being a thing with the nets and the tunas. You're not supposed to kill Flipper, but and then so when Leo gets his sandwich and he's like, "No, don't eat the tuna." It's these running things that I
Yeah.
think work well and make for that through line of buddy cop
Hmm.
writing, that we were talking about at the beginning. So
Yeah, definitely. I think it holds up. I don't think it's structurally. Again, I don't think it's written as well as the first one, which is unfortunately probably due to the new screenwriter here. But I think it's definitely good. And so I think we're gonna slowly start to wind things down. So, Dad, I got to ask you, who do you think is the best actor in this movie?
how well would we say? Well, so for the first one, we gave the Murtaugh and Riggs working together,
Yeah.
right? So we already had a cop out. So I guess I got to go Joe Pesci on this one.
Okay.
I think that the character is the most memorable. Now, obviously, again, we talk about the nature of these movies and how we are obviously supposed to focus on Danny Glover and Mel Gibson and their interaction and that sort of thing, and they build the movie. But if we're talking about memorable characters, I think that the Joe Pesci character just kind of sticks out,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, he's
And you
he's so
can
funny.
tell. I mean, you can tell there's a little something there too. I mean, there's glances and there's stuff like that where he thinks these guys are his friends, and stuff like that. And you can kind of see that coming through. And I think he does a good job with that.
Yeah, well, and especially when we get to the end when he hugs Murtaugh and Riggs, and then he's like, "Wait, wait, wait, can I turn on the siren?" When
Yeah.
he's driving the car back. Yeah, no, he's definitely got some good moments. That was gonna be my answer, but since you took it, I'm gonna say Sam the dog.
Oh yes. Well, he
Shout out,
definitely
he's the
knew
best
where to
boy.
run. Yes, he knew when to hop in the truck.
Yeah, well, he saved them from the helicopters.
That's right.
I thought Sam when so we've got the scene where Riggs gets like punched in the head or whatever when he's kidnapped before he gets thrown into the ocean. I thought, and then we have a shot of Sam who's like cowering in the bed and slinks down. I 1,000% thought we were going to get a scene where before he gets thrown into the ocean, they were going to do it, and then Sam was going to jump on him and save
That's a
Riggs.
good point. He didn't do anything there. Now I'm a little bit more disappointed. I didn't even notice that he was back there. That's pretty sad.
Yeah, but well, and it's also he's got a sad moment where Riggs is just wandering on the beach holding Rika's body, just doing circles, and Sam is just sitting in the corner. Like it's actually a really well composed shot.
He definitely knows. Yeah, that shot it really stands out as memorable. But yes, he knows how to give him his space.
Oh yeah, he's a very smart dog. But so we did best actor. What do you think is the best scene in this movie?
You run with it.
Me, my favorite scene is and again, I wanted to talk about it earlier, but I ignored it so that we could do it now. The scene in the bathroom where Riggs is sitting down on the toilet. He's
Oh
been there for
yes,
20 hours. His
we
legs
didn't
are
we
numb.
didn't talk about that at all. That's right. I forgot that was this one.
Yeah, yeah. So he's sitting down on the toilet, and then Riggs comes over, and then he's like, Riggs, keep it quiet. And then the next shot is literally the entire police station, like half the fire department. They're all outside the house. But the part that sticks out to me is after everybody leaves, they pour the liquid nitrogen on the bomb or whatever. Which why don't you just disarm the bomb? But whatever. They
Obviously, they looked at it and they couldn't.
they have the scene where whoever's in charge of the bomb squad is like, Riggs, get out of here, and he's like, no, he can't move his legs, so I have to help him.
Right.
And then they've got that little brief interaction where they talk for a little while, they have some jokes, and then they get a little bit serious, and then they go back to making jokes. And that was again like when they have that the scene where they're driving in the car in the first movie. This is the one that sold to me. These guys are at this point now, they're not just buddies, they're like best friends,
Right.
And I think right before they blow up the bomb or whatever, Murtaugh even has a line where he's like, Riggs, And they lock eyes, and Riggs, he's just like, I
Yeah.
know. And then Murtaugh's like, no, I really mean it. And he's like, I hear you. And then they pull off and pull him off the toilet, and the bomb blows up.
I have to agree. Yeah, that's probably is what I would consider one of the best scenes. And I'm shocked that we didn't. And part of the reason we didn't talk about it is because I couldn't remember if it was in this one or the third one, and I didn't want to spoil anything.
See, that's what happens when you don't just watch the movie.
I know. I need to be more committed.
You're
to
doing
this,
extra credit.
Yeah, I do have to agree. And if we talk about character moments, that's definitely a big one for him. Like you said, again, this is the not just partners, brothers kind of thing, right? And I guess if we had to, so you took that one. If I had to go with another scene, maybe a character moment that I kind of like and it plays out a little bit more in future movies too, slightly, not a big, but when they're in the container, and by now Riggs is mean face Riggs, and stuff.
Yeah.
And he grabs that money. He says, "What I'm holding in my hand could send all my kids through college," and stuff. And Riggs is like, "Well, take it." And he says, "No, blood money," and stuff. So just that little bit. And I know that's fantasizing cops, and the good cops and versus bad cops, that sort of thing. Right. And that kind of stuff. But I like that, they kind of run with that a bit. And I don't know, it just felt good. And again, it reminds us that even though these guys are wandering around shooting foreign nationals willy-nilly, they're still good cops.
Yeah, they've got like a baseline of ethics and morals or whatever, where they're trying to do the right thing. I had actually forgotten about that moment, but yeah, that was a good scene. And then after the cargo container starts to lift up and they blast the car out the door,
They drive the car, and all that money going into the water. That just made me think of some guy on a boat, some fisherman on a Murtaugh on his boat would have been great right then. That would have been when to have the camera out.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he doesn't know much about boats, as we've learned. Okay, really quick about the money, though. He says that they're $1,000 bills. So are they in South African, whatever the South African currency is?
No, they were American. And I actually asked my wife because she works at a bank. I said, "Do they still make $1,000 bills?" And she said, "Yeah, they're still a thing." Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should pay attention to her more. Maybe she said it was something more in the 80s. I can't rember. But
Okay, yeah, because
they're definitely a thing. But.
Well, as soon as he said $1,000 bills, I was like, "That's not American. They don't make bills that high."
So according to her, either they were a thing or they still are. Now I feel bad. So we'll have to. Maybe you should edit that out.
Point is, no, I'm leaving it in, and I'm leaving it in, and I'm gonna take the clip and I'm gonna tag her in.
That's right. You got to throw that one on the reels. But no, I think that. Yeah, it is actually a thing. And that, that's what he said, that handful, and of course we're college in the 80s is a whole lot different than college now, but that handful or whatever, going to put all my kids through college. I thought that was quite a, so then you take that and extrapolate out to how many pallets worth of cash were there.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, he was looking at it and he was like thousands. I was like, dude, there's 8 pallets that are stacked almost as tall as you. There's more than 1,000. And then he goes thousands, millions, maybe billions. I was like, all right, now we're getting a little closer to the money.
And then let's drive a car through it.
Yeah, no, that's a good moment. I had forgotten about that. But I think we'll begin to wind down. So, Dad, any final thoughts on Lethal Weapon 2?
If you listen to us and you haven't watched it, then watch it. And I would say that if you enjoyed this one, you'll enjoy 3 and 4. If you like these characters, right? And that's what these movies do. They make you like these characters and enjoy the situations they get in the same way that you would like a show, that where it's these characters thrown into a different thing. And here's what happens when they meet these bad guys, and that sort of thing, right? If you like that idea, then 3 and 4 is more of this, and it's great. I would say 3 and 4 is more of 2, and I think that anybody who is looking for, if you're looking for, again, hopefully nobody's got this far and hasn't watched them, I guess, but I would recommend them. So I will always go back and throw these on. I don't rewatch them as much as I watch Lord of the Rings or anything like that, but I'll pull these up every once in a while. So we had mentioned back when we first started talking about getting these on the docket is they aren't streaming as well. We had to watch them. And they went off and they were going off streaming shortly, and that sort of thing. So hopefully they get picked up and they always have some sort of streaming presence because I think they're good movies to watch.
Definitely, I agree. At least the first two, the ones that I've seen, I think that they hold up. Like I said in the beginning, I was a little hesitant about this because I'm always wary when it comes to sequels. But I think it definitely lives up, and like you said, it sort of continues that the birth of the buddy cop, and so watching these two as a pair, I think, is actually a pretty strong. It'd be a fun little double feature,
Yeah, it
a
would.
little movie
Definitely.
marathon. But yeah, so again, if you haven't watched it, then you're missing out. Like we said, they're hard to find streaming. As far as I know, I think at this point they're only available to rent on Prime Video.
Mm.
But to date this recording a little bit, it's going to be a couple weeks before the video comes out, so maybe it's streaming somewhere. I don't know. Go ahead and give it a look. But definitely, I think they are fun. They're a couple of movies that I would definitely, again, like I said, the first two at least, I could definitely see myself rewatching them. But I think that we're going to leave it there. Comment down below what you thought of Lethal Weapon 2. Let us know if you agree or disagree and what your favorite scene in the movie is. And we will see you guys next time to talk about another classic movie.